Rotary today. We have a packed agenda today with the changing of the DRCF guard and our great speaker, Dan Pike. So let's launch the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance and the four-way test.
Thanks so much, President Allison. I appreciate it. And I'm going to make sure I have Jamie enlisted to get me started. Just have a little different twist today. As I was considering a blessed or inspirational moment, I was thinking some of last week and the holiday, as well as this week, and the focus on of land conservation. And you really can't listen to a patriotic song without hearing the word land mentioned several times, just showing the value that our country's founders put on that. So this is a little brief musical tribute to start our day.
We have some sad news in the Rotary family. Longtime Denver Rotarian Alan White passed away yesterday, July 8th, at the age of 85. Up until his resignation, August 2012, due to his declining health, Alan has been a faithful member of Club 31 for 41 years. Services will be held on Friday, July 12th at 10:30 a.m. at St. Gabriel's Episcopal Church in Cherry Hills. Second, fellow member Tom Vincent's wife, Eleanor, died peacefully on Sunday afternoon, July 7th. They had been married for over 55 plus years, and she had been ill for the past 3.5 years. Services will be held Monday, July 15th at 11 a.m. at Welshire Presbyterian Church. Please keep the White and Vincent families in your thoughts and prayers this week. Rotary Family Evening at the Rockies will take place Wednesday evening, July 24th. Reservations are required by tomorrow, July 12th. See Jamie to register. We have quite a few guests today, so if you could hold your applause to the end, please. First up, we have Bruce Wells. Bruce is a president of Thermatech, and he's interested in becoming a member. He's a guest, he's a guest of Rod Reiner, and we need to speak with him about clean water systems. So for our clean water projects in the group, he's the man to talk to. Second guest, I have Andy Seth. He's president of Minds Matter, and he is a guest of Bob Heiserman. We have Misty Ewigan. She is in environmental and family law, and she is also a guest of Bob Heiserman. We have Debbie Misigatis. She is a CPA, and she is a guest of Jim Warner. We have Joan McWilliams, and she is the wife of Bob, and she and Bob have been married for 27 years, and she is a mediator. We have Ray Hart and Matt Kukan, and both of those guys are guests of Charlie Miller, and they are real estate appraisers.
Thank you.
And we have John Ellers, who is a land banker. He's a guest of Adam Yu. Please go and talk to him. He has an interesting seminar coming up this Saturday that you may be interested in land investment, so talk to him about that. And last but certainly not least, we have the lovely Victoria Ashby, and she is the wife of Lucius Ashby. Thank you. Welcome. We have one visiting Rotarian, and it's Sandra Campbell, and she is from the Superstitious Mountain, Arizona Club. And I didn't see where she was sitting, but she is here to present us with a flag. Come on up, Sandra. She got her flag already, so this is just... Oh, sorry. Superstition Mountain, not Superstitious Mountain. Thank you. We have two Berthatarians that are here today. We have Rod Reiner. I know Rod's here. And then we also have Bob Heiserman. Happy birthday. So a doctor, a lawyer, and a Rotarian are all at St. Peter's gates. And they're talking to St. Peter, and St. Peter says, you all get one thing to take into heaven with you. So the doctor, he's first and says, I'd like to bring in $1 million. St. Peter says, no problem, go on in, here's your $1 million. The second person is a lawyer, and not to be outdone, he asks for $2 million. And the last person is a Rotarian, and it just so happens that he just got done being a fundraiser for Branch Rickey. So he gets up a little bit closer to St. Peter, and he says, if you wouldn't mind, would you mind giving me the name of those two guys that went in front of me? And last, since the time is now is the motto of this year for Allison, and so I thought I'd give you a quote from Abraham Lincoln and about the future. He says, the best thing about the future is that it comes one day at a time. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to have Alan Friedman come up and present the memorial resolution for Bob McWilliams.
Fellow Rotarians and guests, we pause today in memory of our friend and fellow Rotarian, Judge Robert H. McWilliams, Jr. Bob was born in Salina, Kansas, came to Denver in 1927, where his father chaired the University of Denver Sociology Department. He lettered in tennis and basketball and was class president at South High School. Graduated with honors in 1938 from DU as a 3-year letterman in tennis and basketball, Phi Beta Kappa, and class valedictorian. In 1941, he graduated from DU Law School with honors. He earned the highest score on the Colorado bar examination that year. This is not a man who was wanted to settle for second place. And he went to work as a Denver deputy district attorney. During World War II, he worked for the Office of Strategic Services in China. The OSS was the precursor never talked much about what went on there. After the war, he returned to Denver in the DA's office, and in 1949 started private practice. Hadn't been in private practice very long when Mayor quit duty and asked him to be a part-time municipal judge. As Bob later recalled, he said, I said yes, and before long the whole thing got out of hand. 62 years later, after sitting on the Denver District Court, the Colorado Supreme Court, including 3 years as Chief Justice, and the United States Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit, Bob finally retired in 2011 at the age of 95. He was the longest sitting judge in the history of Colorado. During that time, he never lost his sense of humility, his sense of humor, or his perspective. In a 1984 article in the Denver Post, told a reporter that some people would think I was over my head on the municipal court. Bob ran for the district court in 1952 and the Supreme Court in 1960, back when we elected judges in Colorado. He won the seat on the district court as a Republican in a heavily Democrat area. In the 1960 election for the Supreme Court, he drew the highest number of votes of any candidate on the ticket, including presidential, senatorial, and congressional hopefuls. Poll of lawyers taken before the election favored him by 96%. Despite all that success as a campaigner, Bob believed that political elections were the wrong thing for judicial appointments, and was a leader in the movement to establish the current system of selection and retention of judges in Colorado. For that, he won the Colorado Bar Association's highest award, the Merit of Honor, Award of Merit, sorry. In 1970, Bob was appointed to the 10th Circuit Federal Court. When he retired 41 years later, on November 16, 2011, he was honored by the 10th Circuit Historical Society, and Governor Hickenlooper proclaimed the date Judge Robert H. McWilliams Day. As another judge was talking about how Judge McWilliams was appointed by President Nixon, Bob couldn't resist piping up from his seat humorously that whatever you may think about Nixon and whatever he may have done, he sure knew how to appoint federal judges. Bob's memorial service was held April 19, 2013 at the Church of the Ascension, where he'd been a senior warden and was married twice. First time to Catherine in 1942. Catherine passed away in 1984, and then he was married in 1986 to Joan McWilliams, who's here today with us. Judge Abell at the memorial service told attendees, and these are his words, Bob's national legacy as a judge was as a plain-spoken, fact-based jurist, dedicated to service with dignity and respect to all involved. Bob's legacy was one of collegiality and non-ideological justice. Justice Sotomayor of the U.S. Supreme Court sent a letter. In it, she wrote that Bob's passing is a deep loss for you, the 10th Circuit, and the country. I define heroes as those individuals who do their duty with passion, commitment, humility, and integrity. Robert lived up to every facet of this ideal. He served the state of Colorado and the country with distinction and honor. Bob was a member of Club 31 for 52 years. At the time of his death, he was the oldest living past president. Joan says that one of his favorite recollections was a meeting in which he presided and Roy Rogers visited. Roy Rogers came onto the stage on trigger. Joan remembers attending Rotary meetings with Bob in places so diverse as Salina, Kansas, and Hong Kong. Bob's service to his community, state, and country, his lifelong commitment and dedication to his family, friends, church, schools, and our system of justice exemplified the principles of Rotary. His was a life exceptionally well lived. As his family wrote in his obituary, he was loved by all and returned that love tenfold. He set a shining and enduring example of what a judge should be, and he mentored generations of judges and lawyers, particularly the young lawyers who had an extremely good fortune to work for him. I'm lucky and grateful to have been one of those, and I've seen Joan been almost 40 years since that happened. We express our deepest sympathy to his wife, Joan, his son, Ed, who we expected to be here, and their families. Madam President, I move for adoption of this resolution by standing vote of membership of Vice President.
Thank you, Alan. Now, I'd like to ask Todd Bacon to join me on the stage for the DRCF Changing of the Guard. And I wanted to take a moment to thank Todd for his weekly Celebrate Our Service emails, which are a meaningful reminder of all the service that Denver Rotary provides to the community.
Thank you very much, President Allison. We'll start the changing of the guard today with recognizing our past presidents who are in attendance. So when I call your name, please stand and be recognized. Dick Metcalf, Skip Aher, Jim Wilkins, Wright Wooten, Pete Wall, Chuck Everald, and Frank Lawrence. Thank you all for your past service. This time, we'd like to acknowledge our 2012-2013 officers. We have Debbie Demuth, immediate past president, and she's finishing her 6-year term. Lucius Ashby, vice president and president-elect. Peter Tedstrom, our treasurer. John Klug, secretary, and myself. Other trustees, if you could please stand when I call your name. Barbara Berg, Sid Brooks, Alice Bullwinkle, John Klug, Don Schlup, and Virgil Scott. These are your trustees we'll be continuing. And then our outgoing trustees include Debbie Demuth, Sue Ryden, and Tom Woodruff. We have plaques for you three. If you could come up and meet Tom, you might be the only one here. So, thanks to our current board of trustees. And I would be remiss not to acknowledge David Lee. David was a trustee beginning in 2007 until shortly before his death this past fall. Virgil Scott has been filling the remainder of his term. I'd like to also acknowledge the 2013 Grants Committee. Does a lion's share of the work of the foundation. The Grants Committee is made up of 3 members of the Board of Trustees of the foundation, 3 directors of the club, and 3 members at large. So we have Peter Tedstrom, who chaired the committee this year, Sid Brooks, who was vice chairman and will chair the committee this coming year, Alice Bullwinkle, Alison Clark-Hardesty, Alan Friedberg, Brian Hickel, Melissa Kelly, Gretchen Nee, and Jim White. A round of applause, please, for our grants committee. And I think I left my most important notes in my seat. Experience in my second stint on the Board of Trustees, the grants are the very best thing that we do. It's exhilarating, really almost overwhelming what we as a club can do. And that's because of the foresight of our members who founded the foundation in 1969. There was slow growth in the foundation in the beginning. By 1972, we had a whole $32,000 in the foundation. And it wasn't until we started Artists of America in 1981 that the body of the foundation really began to grow. Today we're at about $3 million, thanks to your contributions, and thanks also to the careful and balanced management of the funds by our member Earl Wright and his team at AMG. Having this kind of foundation enables us to give sustainably over the years, so we're not dependent on having individual fundraisers each year that may or may not be robust, which is the cycle in some of the small clubs. But I have to point out that our fundraisers, the Peach Sale and Branch Rickey, are really critical to the amount of money that we have to give each year. At the same time that we've been able to grow the foundation to the $3 million mark, we've been able to make grants of $5.75 million over the last 20 years. In 1993, 20 years ago, we gave out $156,000. This year, we were able to give $263,000 to 12 different organizations and committees where Rotarians are intimately involved. But at the same time, we had grant requests of $314,000, so we had about an 18% shortfall in the funds that we would have dearly loved to be able to give out. One of my goals this year has been to educate and take the mystery out of the foundation and how it operates. For example, how do we determine how much money we have to give? Well, we give out 50% of your direct contributions each year. The other 50% goes into the corpus. We give out 100% of our share of the income from Branch Rickey and from the Peach Sale. And then we give out 4.5% of the value of the corpus. So we add those three numbers together, and that's how we determine how much money we have to give. And you can see how important your contributions are and participation in our fundraisers to get to that number each year. This year, we've made great strides in the percentage of our members who've chosen to support what we do. A year ago, we had 41% participation by our club. This year, we're just topping over 50%. And I think that's a tremendous growth that we've had. On the plus side, that means we got another 50% to go, so we got a long way to go. So those are a bunch of numbers, but my year as chair of the foundation, I look back and it's really the people that have made a big difference that stick out in my mind. First of all, it begins with my fellow trustees. Thank you all for your service this past year. I've also been able to enjoy a wonderful working relationship with President Jim McGibney and the board of directors of the club. Jim, it's been a real pleasure to get to know you better and working with you this year. Thanks also to Steve Engler. I don't see Steve here. Steve is our controller. He knows more about our income, our grants, our expenses than anybody. Plus, he keeps us on the straight and narrow path that we need to be on. And finally, I have to give a special shout out to Darlene. Back here. Until you reach a certain level of leadership in this club, you have no idea what Darlene does day in and day out. I found her work to be absolutely impeccable. She's dependable, she's timely, she's accurate, she's innovative, creative, she's so reliable. Darlene has a real knack for making everybody around her shine, which I think Steve knows better than anybody. And so, it's kind of a dull shine. Working on it. So anyway, a big thanks to everybody from the bottom of my heart. This time I'd like to bring your new president to the podium, Lucius Ashby. Lucius is a CPA with a specialty in taxes and audits, which is a perfect background to be running a foundation. He's the owner partner with Jackson, Ashby, and Goldstein. And at this time I'd like to present Lucius with the president's pin. And I don't want to make this too heavy, but of the world's 7.1 billion population, there's only one person that can wear the president's pin at the Rotary Club Foundation. And that's you. So the podium is yours, Lucius. a wonderful plaque with a plaque beside
it. Then there's another small gift that they asked me to do. And I have a little help with this.
It's a gift certificate to the place where I have my coaching classes.
Because I have no idea, so I called his wife. and she helped. Thank you. Next, I would like to introduce the incoming trustees. And we'll just briefly stand as they're calling your name. Jerry Little, Virgil Scott, and Virgil's been elected his term because we replaced David in David's term. Tucker Trotman and Chuck Turner. Those are the new incoming trustees. Next, I would like to present the new officers, the incoming officers. So just briefly stand as I call you. Alice Bowen as the president-elect and vice president. Todd Baker as the past president. Peter Chester as treasurer. And Chuck Turner as the secretary. This Rotary stuff, and asked me to president, I really had no idea what I was getting into. But that was the same when I decided to become a Rotarian. Because really the mission of the foundation is to provide the financial resources to support the efforts of the club and its members that are involved in various organizations that we give both financial and business expertise to. So it will be my task to provide the leadership for the stewardship of the foundation's funds, the process of the grants we give to the various organizations of support, and our new effort to increase the corpus of the foundation. I want to thank you for your confidence in me to provide the leadership to carry this out for you. When I joined the Rotary, as I said, I did not really understand what I was getting into or what the Rotary really was about. First, I just looked at this as a luncheon club that we get together and have lunch, and not really what we are. I had no idea or appreciation for the level of service we provide. As a result, I didn't understand the good we do, what the money members give to the foundation, and the involvement that they have, and the service we provide to the organizations. So in my first few years, I did not give to the foundation. The foundation is a vehicle that allows us to pool our funds and give to worthy organizations that we're involved in. You can look at any of the organizations we have given grants to and provided other resources to and see the impact that we have made. When I first came to the club, I did not see all this. As you see now, I can. And I believe my goal is to have those who don't get it to come along with me. I want to help those who have not stepped up and given to understand that they should. I want to help them to see the good we do and everyone in the foundation does. Todd's pictures really help us, and he will truly be our back to follow. The grants we give and our involvement with these organizations have helped us make the Denver community and our national community a much better place to live. But we can do much better with additional resources. So I ask your support to help them with this new legacy effort that we're starting. It will be another vehicle that will allow you to support the foundation. So I'd like to thank you, and this is going to be a great year. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucius. I look forward to serving alongside you. Dixon Griswold was here today, and he left a note for me to introduce our speaker, Dan Pike. Dan tells me that he has a joke about Dixon, so maybe he scared him off. Anyway, Dan opened the Rocky Mountain office of the Nature Conservancy in 1976. He has helped to found 2 local land trusts and was the first chairman of the Colorado Conservation Easement Oversight Committee created by the state legislature in 2008. For the past 15 years, he has served as president of Colorado Open Lands, which has protected over 250,000 acres of land in over 40 Colorado counties. We are lucky to have Dan and his team working to preserve land in our beautiful state. Please welcome Dan Pike.
Thank you, Alison. Be a disaster. Well, the first disaster is I hope I can work the PowerPoint. It's a pleasure to be here today. I have a lot of old friends in the audience. I appreciate Pam setting this up and Alison's introduction. As Alison mentioned, I'm an old friend of Dixon Griswold, who asked me to speak today and suggested to Rotary, and then decided that he couldn't stand the speech, so he's looking for lunch. But the story I was going to tell about Dixon was many of you might know he moved here from New Orleans after Katrina started his business here, and he was telling me of a client he had in New Orleans who was a fairly high-powered attorney in town, and this attorney, he was telling me this time this attorney went out duck hunting in rural Louisiana, and he was out on a slough and he had his decoys out in front of him. He was in the blind on the shore, and the duck flies over, and he shoots the duck, and the duck kind of sails past him and lands in the field behind the blind. And so the lawyer gets out of the blind, he's climbing over the fence to go into the field and get this duck, and a farmer in a tractor pulls up just as he's climbing over the fence. The farmer shuts off the engine, and he says, "What are you doing?" And the attorney says, "Well, I shot this duck, and I was going over to pick it up." And the farmer said, "No, you're not." And the attorney kind of looked at him a minute, and he got red in the face, and he said, "Look, I'm the best litigator in the state of Louisiana. If you don't let me go get that duck, I'm going to sue you, and I'm going to take the duck, and I'm going to take that rusty old tractor, and I'm going to take your land, and you're really going to regret it." And the farmer kind of gets this smirk on his face, and he says, "Well, I guess you don't know how we settle disputes like this in the Bayou country." And the lawyer said, "Well, how's that?" He said, "We usually, in minor disputes like this, follow the 3-kick rule." The lawyer says, 3-kick rules, what's that? The farmer says, "Well, I kick you 3 times, and then you kick me 3 times, and we keep doing this until one of us gives up. And whoever gives up, the other one's the winner." And the lawyer's thinking about this, and he's looking at this farmer. He's a 70-year-old frail guy, a rusty tractor, and this lawyer works out at the athletic club every day. He's in good shape, so he decides, "Well, I can take this guy." So the lawyer says, "Okay, let's do it." And the farmer climbs down from the tractor and kind of ambles over to the lawyer. Before the lawyer knows, the farmer kicks him as hard as he can in the shins. The lawyer drops down and is moaning and holding his shin, and he starts to cry so much. And just as he starts to stand up, the farmer kicks him as hard as he can in the groin. And the guy buckles over to his knees, and he's moaning and sweating and crying. It takes him a couple of minutes to finally get his composure back. And he looks up, and just as he looks up, the farmer kicks him in the jaw. The lawyer falls over backwards, his nose is broken, and his mouth's bleeding. It takes him 5 minutes to get his composure back. But finally, he kind of gets himself together and stands up and says to the farmer, "Okay, you old coot, now it's my turn." And the farmer says, "That's okay, you win, you kick the duck." Hopefully I get this. So I had to struggle to wrap that joke into Dixon. I can't wrap it into conservation also. It was a stretch to get it to Dixon. As Alison mentioned, I'm president of Colorado Open Lands, which is a statewide land trust, one of the older land trusts in Colorado. And I know several of you are familiar with the various conservation programs programs in the country in Colorado. We've got a really aggressive income tax credit that's resulted in the protection of thousands of acres in Colorado. So Colorado's been very much in the forefront of conservation in the country. And I just want to touch a little bit on today on sort of the relevance of that. The relevance of all of us in the room, the relevance of all of us in the state to that conservation, those conservation efforts. Colorado Lands was formed in 1981 by the Colorado Forum, which probably many of you are familiar with, a group of CEOs that are Denver-based. And as a result of being formed by the Forum, we had, the board was nominated over the first decade or so by Forum members. And it resulted in the organization taking a very business-like approach to what we do. And that carries on to today. And what we do is real estate. We just do real estate for conservation outcomes. As Alison mentioned, we've done over 300 conservation projects in the majority of counties around the state. We've protected in excess of 270,000 acres. Most of those projects revolve around conservation easements, which I assume, for good and bad, people have probably heard a fair amount about conservation easements, but a conservation easement is a restriction to the landowner places on land that restricts the activities that they can do in order to protect the conservation values of that property. And they, in fact, convey a deed. The conservation easement is a deed that they convey to us. And we hold that deed, and basically that responsibility is to enforce the terms of the restriction and make sure it's upheld. One of the keys to a conservation easement to make it qualified is that it has to be in perpetuity. I'm doing this right. I got light, that's a good sign. Doesn't like me. Here we go. Okay. This is one of my favorite quotes. So you know where I'm coming from. I need a PowerPoint for this presentation. But one of the keys to conservation easements is they have to be in perpetuity. And that's really unique. There's not many endeavors in society today or in their lives that are intended to be in perpetuity. It's one of the things that is very compelling about conservation. It's one of the things people like, is you're trying to preserve something forever. On the other hand, it's a very daunting task. What does it mean to try and preserve something forever? And over the last year at Colorado Lands, we've been asking ourselves that question a lot. What is it going to take to really live up to that promise of preserving land forever? And we've sort of come to two conclusions. One, we need to create a robust organization that's going to be around for decades or a century or more. And we need to do that, we need to have the resources, the capability, and the expertise to be around. In that regard, sort of the first step that we've taken is Colorado Lands is now on the path to merge with another conservation organization, Colorado Conservation Trust, who's another leading conservation organization in the state. And both our boards have sort of agreed that it's really, in the long run, beneficial for us to join our forces and create a more significant organization that's going to be around for the long haul. The second aspect that we've looked at is we can build the legal expertise, really pay attention to contractual obligations in these easements. We can use state-of-the-art technology to monitor properties and for compliance. We can build a war chest to legally defend them. But that is still probably not enough when you start to think of what variances we're going to face in the future. We're going to have people trying to break these things. We're going to have condemnation issues. We're going to have things like climate change, which is really hard to anticipate how to deal with that. So what we've really decided is that the best vehicle we can use to be around forever and enforce these easements forever is to get society to embrace conservation and to really involve society in the significance of protecting these properties. importance of preserving land for a number of reasons, a number of different levels you can look at. Certainly personal level, people want to preserve their family property, or people in a neighborhood want to preserve that open space down the block from them. There's certainly abundance of economic reasons, which I will go through, but for example, we've preserved pretty close to a significant enough basis of agricultural land in Gunnison County to ensure that the ag infrastructure will stay there, that landscape won't get so fragmented that it becomes impossible to undertake agriculture in the future. And that's significant to the economy of Gunnison County. And then there's intrinsic value, which some people swear is really the only thing you need to justify saving land for land's sake. Other people consider it silly. But the point is that land can connect to people in a lot of different ways, connect to their values in a lot of different ways. So let's just walk through the corners. This is a property we have outside between Blankenburg and Evergreen, Noble Meadow. Highly scenic. 10 years ago, the citizens of Evergreen, this was proposed for a subdivision, the citizens of Evergreen said, we've got to preserve this. This is the gateway to our community. And this helps define what Evergreen is. And we had an amazing vote. We had a bond issue for this that passed on 96% yes vote in Evergreen. Recreational values, I'm sure a lot of you would like to be in that stream right now. A lot of people love to fish and hike and hunt and all the things you do on public or conserved land. But there's also economic values of this. Outdoor recreation brings in $10 billion to the Colorado economy every year. Education values, this is Heron Pond in Denver. We have a conservation easement on Heron Pond. The guy on the right is Chris Pegg, who's the science director for the Nature Conservancy, and he's showing these kids about a wetland ecology right in the middle of Denver. There's a growing concern in the education community and in the conservation community about the gap between kids today and nature, and you know that they're more apt to know virtual nature than actual nature. And there's getting to be a real effort to try and bring kids back on the ground and experience nature. Family values, a lot of, I think, everybody's best memories are families doing things together on property, hiking, picnicking, whatever. I know I learned to hunt from my father. My father taught me to hunt, and I spent a lot of my youth hunting with my father. And I've done that same thing to my son. And I now have a grandson that I hope I can introduce to hunting. Well, that's more than just a physical activity. That's a family value. And that's family value that's made possible only by having some place to hunt. Having either the animals out there or the ground or both to hunt on. Habitat, wildlife, I think some of that's self-evident. The benefits of biological diversity there are. This is what's called an extreme rich fen, which is in South Park. There's about 12 of these. The only other place that a lot of the vegetation in that place exists is in Superior. And it's really a unique ecosystem that's 40 miles from Denver. Urban relief, I think the urban neighborhoods have long been overlooked when we talk about land conservation. I think there's a growing recognition of the value of having relief congestion in urban areas, having access to recreation, having neighborhood parks, and we're starting to see an increased emphasis on that. This is the Highline Canal, and the Highline Canal is just a gem that Denver has. Runs through a dozen communities that very few communities have a situation like that. This is your intrinsic. This is the Catspaw Ranch, which is on the Navajo River in southern Colorado. A lot of people look at that and just say that's got to stay the same. Sometimes, a picture, you don't know until you see it, but when you see it, you say, we need to keep that the way it is. So I just want to take a second to talk about economic benefits of conservation. That's a quote from the Chamber of Commerce that's recognizing that states need to think about more than just subsidies and low taxes to attract businesses, because businesses are thinking about more of that. This is an interesting statistic. statistic. From 1970 to 2010, employment in the West grew by 152%. Employment in the rest of the country grew by 78%. The main reason is people want to live in the West. People want to be in the West. It's the quality of life that people want. And so this gets back to the chamber talking about a lot of activities in economic development groups and so on are promoting public lands and the outdoor lifestyle as a way of attracting both high-quality employees and businesses to the region. You probably know an example of that, this quote. So the point I'm making here is that a lot of our values as communities, our values as individuals, our values in family are related to land. And I think while a lot of people like the idea of conservation, a lot of times they haven't connected those dots. That, gee, this is the role that land plays in our community. A lot of our identity comes from land. Land really is a part of the fabric of most of the places we live. And so I think part of our job as a conservation organization looking in perpetuity is to connect those dots for people. 79% of Coloradans believe that public lands support the economy, provide recreational opportunities, and enhance the quality of life. And 68% of Coloradans consider themselves conservationists. That's from a poll this January done by CC. So that's just sort of my message, is I think we need to look at land as more than just scenery or where the elk are. Land is really part of who we are as a state, and part of who we are as communities, and to a great extent, part of who we are as families and people. And I think that message is going to help us be around in perpetuity and address that issue. So that's my topic. I'm happy to answer questions. I've got somebody gave me a question. I might take this is a loaded question, so I'll take another question first. Maybe I can run out of time before I yeah.
In addition to preserving undeveloped lands, is there any movement to reclaim developed land that's out of the
Yeah, there's that Heron Pond that the Nature Conservancy guy was taking those little kids on. It's a brownfield site. And it's become a water retention area because it was frankly toxic. And you know, we could figure out how to use the amenity. We didn't want to build things on it, but it would be good for that. I don't know if you know the Rooney Road soccer fields in Jefferson County, big artificial turf soccer fields that are built on a landfill. And again, it's sort of a satisfactory use of that property without allowing development. But there's a lot, you know, if you go to the mountains, South Park, Breckenridge, there's a lot of that reclaimed old mining tailings from the placer mining up there that now are golf courses and other facilities. So I think, you know, it's a tougher task, but I think reclaimed land's got to fit in the mix of where activities happen. I'm sorry, American. Yeah. Yeah. We've probably got 20 conservation easements in the metro area, but one of the things we're doing is working with the Trust for Public Land, which is another group like ours, and Dr. Cog, sort of identifying a network of rivers and streams in the metro area that become trail corridors or wildlife corridors. It's things like the Highland Canal that bridge multiple jurisdictions. One of the fascinating things, Dr. Cog is supposed to fix those things, but I was on a planning group for Jeffco, and we were looking at future trail planning, and Arvada had a robust trail program, Wheat Ridge had a robust trail program, but they never looked at where their trails connected with each other. You know, well, that's somebody needs to step back and take a bigger picture and say, okay, how does this make sense? So yes, there are programs. Yeah. I'm sorry, Pam, speak up.
Sorry.
Oh, here we go.
Does Colorado Open Lands have mechanisms for cleanup of reclaimed land as well, or is it predominantly holding them in easements and trust?
Yeah. It's predominantly holding easements. We just purchased our first fee property in January in Crescent View. And the whole idea is this program, we want to start creating sanctuaries where the Lord people are. You know, and the Crescent View property, we're partnering with Blackburn Biological Lab. It's got a trail system through it, and the whole idea is to get people back on the ground. So we're going to start changing our approach to a certain degree. Right here.
So is this philosophy on fire prevention, fire has that changed involving in terms of review on that?
Yeah. I leave that to the Nature Conservancy. That's a topic that's probably bigger than us, dealing with the public land side, public land management side. The Nature Conservancy has it's one of their 4 programs is fire management of public lands. So I'm going to plead ignorance, and it's not something we get engaged in. How about,
An observation. My son, Chris West, is the executive director of the Colorado Cattlemen's Acre Land Trust. And one of the outcomes of the conservation easements that he oversees is that family ranches are able to be passed from generation to generation. So when we look at the family values, it's not just the current, but it's the fact that small ranches can stay in the family and succeed into the future. So the ranchers or the conservation and the land trust move a great deal of things.
Yeah, these conservation easements lower the use, well, we got a room full of appraisers, but lower the value of the land. So when the patriarch in a family passes away, if there's an easement on that property, the land value might be cut in half, which allows that land to transfer to their kids, often under a estate tax threshold. The history is if it isn't under that threshold, very often the kids have to sell the ranch and pay the taxes, and it breaks it up. So easements have been a pretty effective tool in keeping ranching land and ranching and keeping it in their families. Yeah. Between where and Rocky Flats? Yeah. Actually, no. That's part of something called Great Outdoors America. That when Salazar was Secretary of Interior, he designated an objective of building a trail corridor from Rocky Flats to actually all the way to Estes. He picked two places in the state. We're doing the other one. We're down in the San Grace, doing the San Luis Valley, doing a major land protection effort down there. I'm out of time, I can tell. There's some brochures on the table. That's interesting.
Dan, we wanted to present you with the gift today to thank you for your service. This is a book about the history of Rotary and Denver Rotary, and just like we heard today about Bob, we have a lot of great Rotarians that have done a lot of work over the years. This is a baseball from our